Will I get thrown out of this company for not being super creative and doing lots of really interesting stuff? No. Will I get thrown out of this company if we have a compliance disaster? Yeah. The founders can continue to innovate and play and think, and we'll worry about the compliance for them. We'll worry about the process for them. Maybe that's not the ideal company for me to have set up. No. Whoever replaces him will be the 5th Prime Minister in 4 years, 3 years, from across 2 political parties. That's crazy. We've been talking about those huge advantages for 7 or 8 years, and I'm not sure that we've capitalised on them to nearly the extent that we should have done. Politics that brings people together, for me, works better than that which divides.
Welcome to the Visionary Podcast, where we discuss science, medicine, physical health. You say in your biography that you love politics. Okay. On one condition. What is that condition?
What did I say in my button? This is on my LinkedIn profile. I love politics, but only where it works constructively for a solution or
I think you said when it brings people together.
When it brings people together, yeah.
That's a bit rare in today's
I
polarized.
love politics. I love the cut and thrust of politics. I mean, you've seen that come through, and I love thinking about our policy environment. I love thinking about how we make things better. My challenge with politics, I ran for Parliament in 2015, and I found it a deeply lonely experience. I found it such a lonely experience that even though I stayed involved in politics, I've never run again. I made a somewhat half-hearted attempt in 2019. Didn't get selected for a seat, but we've now had 3 general elections since I stood, and there's a bit of me still has this sort of itch in the background for politics. There's still something there, I think, that I struggle a little bit with, that I haven't done it.
Maybe you're not pragmatic enough.
Maybe I wasn't enough in the party. Maybe I'm too pragmatic, perhaps, and not partisan enough. But yeah, I hated the experience in 2015, and I got asked to stand in 2016 for Holyrood, and couldn't say no quickly enough. So it's interesting. I worry sometimes that our political system, I don't see consistently groups of people working together for the common good. You know, I think our party politics has become so unstable and so fragmented. And these are people's careers. I get that. You know, if you lose the next election, there's a real problem, because you can only achieve things if you're in power. You can only make things happen if you're in power, really. And so I understand why it's really important to people, but I get the sense that short electoral cycles, very turbulent political situation. You know, we had an election in 2015, 2017, 2019. We had COVID. We had the 2024 general election. It's been a period of profound turbulence and instability. If Keir Starmer gets overthrown by someone in the next 6 months, which is entirely possible, we're starting to see lots of rumours, he will be the 5th Prime Minister. Whoever replaces him will be the 5th Prime Minister in 4 years, 3 years, across 2 political parties. Yeah. That's crazy.
A very quick turnover.
And I do worry sometimes about politics that creates a sort of churn, immediacy. So yeah, I think, but you do see amazing people sometimes getting to terms with difficult, complicated issues, and over a long period of time persevering to try and make things better. I'm deeply divided over the idea of politicians. I think sometimes it can be challenging, but I think we're hard on our politicians. We give them a very difficult job, and I've been lucky enough to meet lots of politicians in my time. I've been lucky enough to meet lots of politicians in my time that I've been really impressed by and have a huge amount of respect for what they're trying to achieve. Yeah. But yeah, I think for me, I've always felt I need to try and do something better to make things better. Yeah. I think that's probably why I've changed careers and changed industries a few times, because I think I always want to make myself better. I want to learn. I want to understand. I want to listen. I want to find out. I want to do. I want to challenge myself and challenge others. Britain's a great country, but
it is.
But it has got no God-given right to exist. It needs to fight to be Britain every single day, and that's and I worry at the moment our language is quite divisive. Our society is in the. I've got some choices to make, and I do get concerned about that. Politics that brings people together for me works better than that which divides.
Absolutely. And talking about politics and policy making and these things, the essence of scientific innovation is creativity, right? To me, science is like art. It's just the other side of the coin. How can we keep curiosity and imagination alive in a sector that's so highly regulated and structured with all the rules going around? How does it happen? How can we shield our scientists and our physicians so they are focused on the mission ahead?
I've always looked to the problem first. What is it I'm trying to solve? What is it I'm trying to achieve? What is it I'm trying to make better? And worry about the regulation to some extent subsequently. I think there have been times in my career where that hasn't been true.
Did that distract you from the mission?
Yeah, it does. And actually probably means I have at times contributed negatively to the mission, got in the way of the mission. So I think a separation is helpful. So it's probably what I loved about Pfizer. Pfizer was really interesting to work at. I was a medical director of oncology, but I wasn't responsible for compliance fundamentally. Of course I was responsible for compliance. We're all responsible for compliance. But I had compliance teams which worked brilliantly. We had committees and groups. We had signatories. We had lots and lots of layers and processes. And I wasn't ultimately accountable for compliance. We had a UK general manager who was ultimately accountable for compliance. And that meant I didn't have to worry about it. I had to be aware of it. I had to make sure that whatever I decided I was going to do was compliant. I had to follow systems and processes, but I could have fun and be creative. When you're actually responsible for compliance, when it's you, the buck stops with you, particularly in smaller companies where you don't have much of a team, I think it can stifle your creativity, because what you're trying to do is, will I get thrown out of this company for not being super creative and doing lots of really interesting stuff? No. Will I get thrown out of this company if we have a compliance disaster? Yeah, we will. So the incentives that we give to people change depending on what they're accountable and responsible for. And I think wherever you can, if we can separate, that's one of the things about PM Life Sciences. Hopefully, the companies we pick up, the founders can continue to innovate and play and think, and we'll worry about the compliance for them. We'll worry about the process for them. Maybe that's not the ideal company for me to have set up. No, but that does allow us to give them that freedom. I think that's probably the really important thing.
Hi, I'm Hala, your host today. If you're enjoying what you see, please hit that lovely subscribe button. It will mean a lot to us. Or maybe a small podcast now, but with your support, we can build this channel together, one step at a time. Thank you so much for being part of it. David, we conclude our episodes with visionary, moral, and ethical questions.
Okay.
Not to imply that all the previous wasn't moral and ethical. I think this structure is a little bit off with these episodes. Now, when you think of where life sciences could be in 10 years, what's your vision? Not the policymaker's vision, not the industry's vision, your vision. Where do you see life sciences going?
In the UK or generally?
In the UK.
I'd love us to be a more integrated ecosystem.
Give me examples, please, in practice.
I'd love to see the pharmaceutical industry, government, the regulators, and the NHS working even more closely together to take advantage of the huge opportunity that we have afforded by, we are on the cusp of, I think we're on the cusp of one of the great technical revolutions.
Are you referring to AI?
No, I'm referring to, I mean, AI is part of it, but I'm referring to genomics, genetic medicine, gene editing technology, longevity medicine, quantum computing.
Very exciting
I mean,
stuff.
all sorts of stuff. I've got a really great colleague called Imran Koza who runs a business consulting on the future of healthcare, and it's incredible what could happen. And I think what I'd love is for the UK to be harnessing its unique power. We've got things like John Bell's My Future Health project. We've got Genomics England. We've got the Genomic Reference Labs. We've got a very, very forward-thinking regulator. We've got a great ecosystem, lots of startups, amazing academia in our universities. We've got a healthcare system, which is, whatever we said earlier about it being lots and lots of individual entities, nonetheless an integrated service population-wide. We've got huge advantages. We've been talking about those huge advantages for 7 or 8 years, and I'm not sure that we've capitalized on them to nearly the extent that we should have done over that time. And I think what I would love to see 10 years from now is that we are seen as one of the pioneering places in the world, to take advantage of some of these new technologies, new approaches, and new techniques. I think people are getting very excited about China just now. Really excited about China, and there's some amazing stuff happening there. I'd love people to be that excited about Britain. I'd love there to be the liquidity in the system, the money in the system, because people they want to build and scale businesses here. Because we've got the ecosystem to do it, the support to do it, and we've got the patients who want to access these medicines, the healthcare system willing to pay for them. I think that would be amazing.
Yeah. We also talk endlessly about transparency. What does true openness mean in healthcare?
Depends who you ask, depends when you ask it. If you'd asked me this as a doctor, I would have said willingness to admit mistakes, willingness to apologize when things go wrong, willingness to learn from those mistakes and ensure they don't happen again in the future. I would have said that's really a fundamental key tenet of clinical openness and transparency.
But someone could lose their job because of this.
Yeah, they could. I know what you mean by that. I don't think people lose their jobs because they make an honest mistake and they report it and they try and learn from it. I think people lose their jobs. I think the world is incredibly tolerant of honest, well-intentioned people making mistakes. I think what people are intolerant of is being lied to or cover up.
When they make mistakes and hide the mistakes and making excuses for the mistakes. I get that.
I'm a responsible officer for revalidation at the Faculty of Pharmaceutical Medicine, among the many other things I do. And what that means is that I make the decision, ultimately 720 doctors who revalidate, so they maintain their license to practice with the GMC through me. And I make a recommendation every 5 years to the GMC whether this person has demonstrated that they remain fit to practice. And if someone comes to me, or the appraisal process, and I get a summary, if someone has made a mistake, put it into their portfolio, reflected on what's happened, what they would do differently, changed it, I look on that as an incredibly positive thing. If I subsequently discover something absolutely appalling's happened and they've not admitted it and then it's happened again, I'm much, much more worried about that. Yeah. So that's I think the openness. And we've talked a little bit about what openness means in the pharmaceutical industry. I think it's just being honest with the public. It's being honest with people.
Yeah. The pharmaceutical industry, they do get a lot of criticism. Where do you think legitimate criticism holds up?
I think a lot of the criticism of the pharmaceutical industry is ill-founded. But I think we are often we have difficulty or reluctance, I think, to stick our head above the parapet and speak in public about the challenges of, this is a commercial sector, it's a commercial entity trying to innovate in a highly regulated and very difficult environment. And I think for the most part, pharma companies, I've never felt uncomfortable as a doctor practicing in any of the companies. I've never felt like we were doing things that I wasn't proud of at any stage. You don't get everything right all the time, but I've never been concerned by that. And so if we have an internal criticism of ourselves that I think is absolutely right, is that I don't think we stand up and scream and shout enough, confidently enough. I don't think we do enough to combat disinformation. I think we're a little, in the UK certainly, we're a little timid about our communication with the public. I think we could be braver.
Is that because of the rules and regulations?
Yeah, I think we're worried about when it becomes promoting to the public or getting involved in a discussion externally. I mean, one of the worst things you can do when someone sends you a bad comment on social media is respond.
Oh yeah, that would be a fight.
Yeah, you just ignore it, right? And I think the trouble with just ignoring stuff is that we don't always. I don't think we've consistently and effectively enough told the story of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and why. Yeah. I think the industry has contributed hugely to human health, right? I mean, companies have discovered medicines and done amazing things, and I think we should be more proud of that.
Yeah, and you've just told me off air that you wouldn't have possibly done this. We'll call it interview, but it's just a conversation. If you were still working in a pharma company,
yeah, I think we would have been nervous about where it would go to. I think that's and I mean we've spoken for a long time today. We've been quite open, and I hope people will look at it and be proud of what we've done. But yeah, I think it's difficult for companies to do this.
Yeah, in the last 10, 20 years, how did your beliefs about healthcare changed? You can include regrets if you want.
I don't think my view on healthcare has changed much. I think my perspective has changed. I think there are other things that have changed much, much more. I'd say I've learned much more about myself, particularly through COVID, but I've learned much more about myself than I have. I think I still think about medicine and life sciences and healthcare similarly to the way I always have. I think I see myself very differently. It's very interesting. I feel a little sorry for David in his 20s. I look back and people say, what would you say if you could meet your 18-year-old self? I'd give him a hug. Poor boy.
Poor surgeon.
He doesn't know what's about to hit him. I've become more tolerant of the challenges. Maybe I was more frustrated by the problems I saw. 48-year-old David may have been more patient and not left the healthcare system when I did at 30. I may have been less easily frustrated. I think I probably did get a bit frustrated and probably was a bit impatient, particularly working in the healthcare system. I mean, when you work in the healthcare system, you meet people who are amazing all the time, but you occasionally meet people who are absolutely not. And I tended to take that quite personally, found it quite difficult. But everyone's battling their own demons and challenges.
Yes. Now, if you had to place a bet on an emerging technology that's going to change medicine forever, what would it be?
There are so many things that I think could really change medicine forever. I think gene editing techniques could be astonishing. I think there are all sorts of things which are going to make the process of discovery much, much easier. Our ability to process the large data sets that we will require to process in order to find information, spot innovation, effect change, develop therapies. If we're doing population-wide genetic analysis to look for things, We could never have managed the computational power to do that 10 years ago. I think with AI and with other advances in technology, we will be better able to do those kind of genomic analyses, genomic assessments. I think we'll probably still need medicines. And I think our ability to screen drug candidates in silico, in computer modeling, using quantum analysis, quantum computing, could revolutionize the speed and efficiency of drug development, drug design, drug discovery, which would be game changing in terms of cost. So if you could really reduce the waste and the wasted effort and the duplication of effort and the time taken, why do we have to charge the money we charge? It's because of the time and the costs of development. It's expensive and it's difficult and it's fraught with risk. A lot of these techniques are going to make it shorter and less difficult and less fraught with risk. And I can envisage a world where healthcare becomes cheaper and easier to deliver. I think we will take for granted many of the innovations that we today feel out of grasp, as we have done throughout human history, right? If you look back 50 years ago, we're in a completely different world today than we were when I was born, and in so many ways. So many things will change.
David, please finish this sentence for me. Healthcare is most beautiful when?
It's available to all.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Simple and to the point. David, I've been writing some notes here about how I summarize the past 6 hours. Your ability to bridge medicine, policy, and ethics with getting the right treatments to patients is absolutely remarkable. You've reminded us today that healthcare transformation isn't just technical, it's also moral. And that progress happens when integrity meets action. What stands out in your commitment is that you don't aim to change from the outside as a critic, but from the inside as a builder. And this is a way to change things. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.